Yuna wiped the grease from her hands and looked out the small window of her cargo ship. The stars stretched endlessly into the black void. She had been running cargo for 3 years now, moving quietly through the edges of the galaxy where no one asked questions and no one cared about a human girl with no papers. She was 19 years old. She looked younger. That was useful. People underestimated her. They saw a small girl with tired eyes and assumed she was harmless. Yuna liked it that way. Her ship was old and ugly, held together with spare parts and hope. She called it the Sparrow. It was not fast, it was not strong, but it was invisible, and in this galaxy, invisible was the only thing that kept humans alive. 12 years ago, Earth had burned. The collapse war had killed billions, and the survivors scattered across the stars like dust in the wind. The Galactic Council had watched it happen. Some said they had caused it. Now humans were a quarantined species. They could not own property. They could not hold citizenship. They were less than nothing in the eyes of the galaxy. Yuna had learned to survive by being small, by being quiet, by never drawing attention. But tonight, something had changed. She stared at the message on her screen. It had arrived an hour ago through an encrypted channel that should not exist anymore. The encryption was old, military grade, from before the war. Only one person in the galaxy knew that cipher. The message contained coordinates and a single word: alive. Tae-woo, her brother. He had been a diplomat, one of the few humans allowed to speak before the Galactic Council. 3 years ago, he had disappeared. Everyone said he was dead, assassinated by those who did not want humanity to have a voice. Yuna had believed it. She had mourned him. She had buried her grief deep inside her chest where it could not hurt her anymore. Now the message sat on her screen like a ghost. She reached out to touch the coordinates when the first alarm screamed through her ship. Red lights flooded the cabin. Her sensors showed 5 ships dropping out of hyperspace around her. Council enforcers, the black warships of the Galactic Council, built to hunt and kill. Yuna's heart stopped. Then it started again, beating fast and hard. She grabbed the controls and tried to run. The Sparrow groaned as she pushed the engines to maximum. It was not enough. It was never going to be enough. A tractor beam locked onto her hull. Then her ship shuddered and stopped. She was caught. The airlock hissed. Heavy boots marched through her corridors. She could hear them coming. 8 soldiers. Their armor clinked with every step. Yuna stood in the center of her cargo bay with her hands raised. She made herself look small. She made herself look afraid. It was not hard. Part of her was afraid. The soldiers surrounded her. They were Melor, tall and skeletal with gray skin stretched tight over their bones. Their eyes glowed a pale yellow in the dim light. They pointed their weapons at her chest. One of them stepped forward. A commander. His voice was cold and sharp like broken glass. Human designation, Yuna. You are under arrest by order of the Galactic Council. The charge is species-level terrorism. You are responsible for the biological attack on Melor Colony 7 that resulted in 4,000 deaths. Yuna blinked. What? I have never been to any Melor colony. I am a cargo runner. I move boxes. That is all I do. The commander did not listen. He nodded to his soldiers. They grabbed her arms and forced them behind her back. Heavy restraints locked around her wrists. The metal was cold against her skin. There must be a mistake, Yuna said. Her voice was steady even though her mind was racing. Check your records. I have not left this sector in 6 months. The evidence is clear, the commander said. Your ship, your genetic signature, your fingerprints on the weapon. You will be transported to Thessar to face the Grand Tribunal. Grand Judge Vren will oversee your execution personally. Execution. And the word hit her like a punch to the stomach. She looked at the commander's face. There was no doubt in his eyes. No hesitation. He believed the evidence completely. But Yuna knew the truth. She had not done this. She had never killed anyone who did not deserve it. Someone had framed her. Someone had built a perfect lie and wrapped it around her like a cage. But why? She was nobody. A ghost drifting through the edges of space. Why would anyone go through so much trouble to destroy her? Then she understood. The message, the coordinates. Tae-woo. Someone knew she would come for her brother. Someone wanted to stop her, or maybe someone wanted to use her. Either way, she had walked into a trap without even knowing it existed. The soldiers dragged her through the airlock and onto their warship. The corridors were cold and sterile, and the lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. Other prisoners watched from behind bars as she passed. Aliens of a dozen species. All of them looked at her with pity in their eyes. A human going to Thessar. A human facing the Grand Tribunal. Everyone knew what that meant. Humans did not get trials. They got examples. They threw her into a cell. The door slammed shut with a sound like thunder. Yuna sat on the cold floor and pressed her back against the wall. She closed her eyes. She breathed slowly. In and out. In and out. The fear was still there. It crawled through her veins like ice water. But beneath the fear, something else was waking up. Something old. Something that had slept inside her for 12 years. She remembered the war. She remembered the facility. She remembered what they had made her into. The council thought they had captured a helpless girl. They thought she would cry and beg and break. They thought she would walk to her execution with her head bowed and her spirit crushed. They were wrong. Yuna opened her eyes. In the darkness of her cell, they seemed to glow. She whispered to herself, so quiet that no one could hear. I am coming, Tae-woo, and anyone who stands in my way will learn why humanity survived the war. The ship jumped to hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light. And somewhere in the cold black void, a storm was beginning to form. The grand chamber of Thessar was the largest room Yuna had ever seen. It stretched upward like the inside of a mountain, with seats carved into the walls in endless rows. Thousands of aliens filled those seats, maybe tens of thousands. They had come from across the galaxy to watch a human die. The noise was deafening. Screams and jeers echoed off the stone walls. Objects flew through the air toward the center of the chamber where Yuna stood alone on a small platform. Rotten food, rocks, things she did not want to identify. Guards with energy shields stood around her, but they let most of the projectiles through. They were not there to protect her. They were there to keep her from running. Yuna stood straight. She did not flinch. She did not cry. She had promised herself she would give them nothing. Above her, on a massive throne carved from black crystal, sat Grand Judge Vren. He was Milor like the soldiers who had arrested her, but older and thinner. His gray skin hung loose on his bones. His yellow eyes burned with hatred as he looked down at her. "Silence!" Vren commanded. His voice was soft, but it carried through the entire chamber. The crowd obeyed instantly. The silence was somehow worse than the screaming. Vren leaned forward on his throne. "Human, you stand accused of the greatest crime in galactic history. The biological attack on Milor Colony 7. 4,000 innocent lives destroyed by a weapon of human design. How do you answer these charges?" Yuna stepped toward the microphone in front of her. "I am innocent. I have never been to Milor space. I have never touched a biological weapon. Someone has framed me for this crime, and I demand a proper investigation." She waited for her words to echo through the chamber. They did not. The microphone was dead. No one had heard her except the guards standing next to her. Vren smiled. It was a terrible thing to see. The accused offers no defense. The evidence speaks clearly. Her ship was tracked to the colony. Her genetic material was found on the weapon. Her fingerprints were on the release mechanism. There can be no doubt. The crowd roared its approval. Yuna felt the hatred washing over her like a wave. These beings did not care about evidence or truth. They wanted blood, human blood. They had wanted it for 12 years, and now they finally had permission to take it. She looked around the chamber, searching for something, anything that could help her. Her eyes moved across the rows of alien faces until they stopped on one figure sitting quietly in the upper balconies. An old alien with silver skin and kind eyes. He wore the robes of a council elder. While everyone else screamed for her death, now he sat perfectly still and watched her with something like sadness in his expression. Elder Pael. She had heard the name before, one of the few council members who had ever spoken in defense of humanity, a voice of reason in a galaxy of hatred. As Yuna watched, Pael gave her the smallest nod, so small that she almost missed it. Then he looked away. The trial continued. Witnesses came forward to testify against her. Scientists presented evidence she knew was fake. Survivors of the colony attack cried and cursed her name. Yuna stood through all of it with her face empty and her heart cold. During a brief pause in the proceedings, the guards adjusted her restraints. One of them, a young alien she did not recognize, pressed something small and hard into her palm. A data chip. Yuna closed her fingers around it and said nothing. The guard moved away without looking at her. Yuna did not know who he was or why he had helped her, but she knew that Elder Pale was watching from above, and she understood that she was not completely alone. Hours passed. The trial was not a search for truth. It was a performance, a show designed to justify what the council had already decided. Yuna was guilty because they needed her to be guilty. Her death would satisfy the anger of the Melor people. It would remind the galaxy that humans were dangerous animals who needed to be controlled. Finally, Vren raised his hand for silence. The chamber went quiet. The evidence is clear. The verdict is certain. Human designation, Yuna. You are found guilty of species-level terrorism. The sentence is death by neural dissolution. Your mind will be destroyed while your body is preserved for organ harvesting. The execution will take place at dawn. The crowd exploded with cheers. Aliens stomped their feet and pounded on the walls. The sound was like thunder, like the end of the world. Yuna did not react. She stood perfectly still as guards grabbed her arms and began to drag her away. But as she moved, she pressed the data chip against the inside of her restraints and felt it click into place. Later, when she was alone, she would find a way to read it. In her mind, she was already planning. The guards threw her into a transport pod and sealed the door. Through the small window, she watched the grand chamber shrink away. Thousands of faces, all twisted with hate, all celebrating her death. She thought about Tae-Woo. Was he really alive? Was he somewhere in this city waiting for her? Or was the message just another part of the trap? It did not matter. Dead or alive, she would find the truth. And if her brother was being held somewhere, she would tear through every wall and every guard to reach him. The transport pod descended into the depths of Thessar. Below the shining towers and beautiful gardens, there was a prison. A place where the council kept its darkest secrets. That was where they were taking her. Yuna pressed her hand against the cold metal of the restraints. Inside, the data chip waited with its secrets. She remembered something her brother had told her once, years ago when they were children hiding in the ruins of Earth. He had said that the universe was not fair, and that justice was not given freely. It had to be taken. Tonight, and she would read the chip. Tomorrow, she would be executed, unless she took her justice first. The transport pod reached the prison level. The doors opened. Guards waited with weapons raised. Yuna walked forward into the darkness with her head high and her eyes clear. The fear was gone now. Only cold purpose remained. The cell was designed to hold monsters. Walls of reinforced steel 3 meters thick. Energy barriers that could vaporize flesh on contact. gravity locks that pinned prisoners to the floor if they moved too fast. The guards had laughed when they threw her inside. They said even a Kreth war beast could not escape this place. Yuna sat in the corner and waited for them to leave. When their footsteps faded, she pulled the data chip from her restraints and pressed it against the neural port behind her ear. So every human from the war years had one, a small piece of technology buried in their skull. The council did not know about it. Information flooded her mind, files, videos, coordinates, the truth. Lord Vren had ordered the attack on his own colony. He had killed 4,000 of his own people to create an excuse for war against humanity. The biological weapon was Melor technology, modified to leave human genetic traces. Yuna had been chosen as the scapegoat because of her brother. Taewoo had discovered the conspiracy. He had gathered evidence. Before he could reveal it, Vren had captured him and locked him away in a black site prison beneath the council chambers. For 3 years, they had tortured him, trying to learn who else knew the truth. Taewoo had not broken. He had not talked. But Vren knew that Taewoo loved his sister, and so he created the trap: frame Yuna, arrest her, threaten her with death, force Taewoo to watch. Eventually, one of them would break. The coordinates on the chip showed Taewoo's location. He was here, beneath the same building, only a few hundred meters away. Yuna closed her eyes and let the rage fill her chest. It was hot and bright, like a star being born. For 3 years, her brother had suffered alone in the dark while she drifted through space feeling sorry for herself. For 3 years, he had protected her by staying silent. No more. She stood up and faced the cell door. Her hands were still bound by heavy restraints. Good. She could use those. Deep inside her mind, there was a door. She had built it herself when she was 7 years old, in the facilities where they had made her into something more than human. Behind that door was the thing they had created, the weapon, the monster. She had kept it locked away for 12 years because she was afraid of what it could do. Now she opened the door. Her heartbeat slowed. Her breathing became shallow and steady. The world around her became sharp and clear, every detail visible, every sound amplified. Pain receptors shut down, fear dissolved. Emotion drained away like water through sand. She was no longer Yuna. She was Remnant 7, a survivor of Project Rebirth. One of 43 children who had been rebuilt from the inside out to become perfect killing machines. Only 12 had survived the process. Only 3 were still alive. The guards came for her at midnight, 4 of them, armed with pulse rifles and shock batons. They opened the cell door and stepped inside, expecting to find a crying girl ready for death. They found something else. Yuna moved before they could react. She swung her bound hands in a wide arc, using the heavy restraints as a club. The first guard's skull cracked. He fell. She caught his shock baton before it hit the ground and drove it into the second guard's throat. He dropped. The third guard raised his rifle, too slow. She was already inside his reach, her elbow crushing his windpipe. He choked and collapsed. The fourth guard tried to run. She threw the restraints at his legs. He stumbled. She was on him in a heartbeat, her hands around his neck. One quick twist. Silence. 4 guards. 3 seconds. Yuna stood among the bodies and felt nothing. She took their weapons and their armor. The chest plate was too big, but she adjusted the straps. The pulse rifle felt comfortable in her hands, familiar. She had trained with weapons like this before she could read. Alarms began to scream. Red lights flooded the corridors. She did not care. Let them come. Let them all come. She moved through the prison like a ghost made of violence. Guards appeared in her path. They died. Doors blocked her way. She blasted through them. Security systems tried to lock her down. She destroyed them with precise shots to their control panels. The black site wing was hidden behind a false wall. She found it by following the screams. Someone was being tortured nearby. The sound was weak and broken, the voice of someone who had suffered for a very long time. Yuna placed a charge on the wall and stepped back. The explosion shook the corridor. When the dust cleared, a new passage had opened. So she walked through and found a row of cells unlike any she had seen before. These were designed not to hold prisoners, but to break them. Machines lined the walls, needles and blades and devices that existed only to cause pain. In the last cell, hanging from chains, was a man she barely recognized. Taewoo was thin, so thin she could count his ribs through his torn shirt. His face was covered in scars. His eyes were closed, but he was breathing. He was alive. Yuna shot the chains. Taewoo fell into her arms. He weighed almost nothing. She held him carefully, afraid he might shatter like glass. His eyes opened. For a moment, there was no recognition. Then his cracked lips formed a word. "Yuna." "I am here," she said. "I am taking you home." A voice crackled in her ear, a communication device she had taken from a dead guard. A woman's voice, strong and calm. "Human girl, this is Hana. I lead the resistance. Elder Pale told me you would need extraction. I have a ship waiting at the eastern spaceport. Can you reach it?" Yuna lifted her brother onto her shoulder. He groaned, but did not complain. "I can reach it." "Then move fast. The entire council guard is coming for you." Yuna smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Let them come." She carried her brother toward the surface, leaving a trail of destruction behind her. But she did not head for the spaceport. Not yet. There was one more thing she needed to do first. The grand chamber was filled with celebration. Lord Vren sat on his throne of black crystal, a glass of golden wine in his skeletal hand. Around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy laughed and congratulated each other. And the human problem was solved. Tomorrow, the girl would die, and soon after, the final war against humanity would begin. Vren had planned this for years. The attack on his own colony had been a small price to pay. 4,000 Melor lives in exchange for the complete destruction of the human species. History would remember him as a hero, the one who finally cleansed the galaxy of its most dangerous pest. The lights went out. For a moment, no one moved. Power failures did not happen on Thessar. The council capital had 7 backup systems. The darkness was impossible. Then a voice echoed through the chamber. It came from every speaker, every screen, every communication device. A young woman's voice, cold and clear. "Lord Vren, you sentenced me to death. I am here to return the favor." Panic exploded. Baalians screamed and pushed toward the exits. Guards rushed to surround Vren, their weapons raised toward the darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the chamber in a dim red glow. Vren stood from his throne. His yellow eyes searched the shadows. "Find her," he commanded. "Find her and kill her." "Sir," a guard captain said, "we should evacuate you to safety." "No." Vren's voice was sharp. "I will not run from a human child. Summon the Fang Corps, all of them. I want her head on my desk before sunrise." The Fang Corps, 40 of the deadliest mercenaries in the galaxy, killers who had destroyed armies and conquered worlds. They had never failed a mission. They had never lost a fight. They arrived within minutes, spreading through the chamber in perfect formation. Their armor was black and covered with the teeth of creatures they had killed. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. They moved like predators, silent and sure. "She is one girl," the Fang Corps commander said. "We will end this quickly." He was wrong. Yuna came from above. She had climbed through the ventilation system and positioned herself in the upper balconies. Her first shot took the commander through the eye. He was dead before he hit the ground. Then she dropped into the chamber, and the killing began. The Fang Corps were fast. Yuna was faster. They fired at where she had been, but she was already somewhere else. She moved through them like water through stones, her body twisting and spinning in ways that should not be possible. One mercenary swung a blade at her neck. She ducked under it, grabbed his arm, and broke it in 3 places. His own blade went through his chest. 2 more came at her from opposite sides. She grabbed the first one and used him as a shield while she shot the second. Then she snapped the shield's neck and let him fall. They came in groups of 5, then 10. It did not matter. She killed them all. Her movements were not human. They were something else, something that had been built in laboratories and forged in the fires of war. The aliens in the chamber watched in frozen horror. They had never seen anything like this. A small human girl standing in a circle of the galaxy's greatest warriors, surrounded by their bodies, barely breathing hard. When the last Fang Corps soldier fell, Yuna turned toward the throne. Vren was alone now. His guards had fled or died. His confidence had melted into pure terror. He stumbled backward, nearly falling from his platform. "Stay away from me," he said, his voice cracked. "I am the Grand Judge. You cannot touch me." Yuna walked up the steps toward him. Blood dripped from her armor. Her eyes were empty and cold. "You framed me for your crime. You tortured my brother for 3 years. You planned to murder billions of innocent humans." "It was necessary," Vren said. "Humans are a disease, a plague that must be stopped. I did what had to be done for the good of the galaxy." Yuna stopped in front of him. She looked up at the cameras that lined the walls of the chamber. Red lights blinked on each one. The entire galaxy was watching. Every world, every species, every leader who had ever called for human blood. "Confess," she said. Vren shook his head. "Never." Yuna grabbed his arm and twisted. Bones snapped. Vren screamed, "Confess!" "I ordered the attack!" Vren gasped. "I killed my own people. I framed the human. The evidence was fake. All of it was fake. Please, please, stop!" His words echoed across 1,000,000,000,000 screens. Aliens watched in shock as the Grand Judge admitted his crimes. Everything they had believed was a lie. The human girl was innocent. The war they had supported was built on murder and deception. Yuna released Vren's broken arm. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing. "Thank you," she said. "Now the galaxy knows the truth." She turned to face the cameras one final time. Her voice was steady and strong. "Humanity asked for peace. You gave us chains. We asked for justice. You gave us death. We will not ask again. From now on, we take what we are owed." Then she turned back to Vren. He raised his hands. "Please, I confessed. I gave you what you wanted. Let me live." Yuna looked down at him. For a moment, she remembered Tae Wu hanging in chains. 3 years of torture. 3 years of screaming in the dark. And this creature had ordered all of it with a smile on his face. "No," she said. She did not use a weapon. Her hands were enough. When it was over, she walked down from the throne and out of the chamber. Thousands of aliens watched her pass. None of them moved. None of them tried to stop her. She walked out into the night air where Hana's ship waited with engines running. Tai Wu was already inside, wrapped in blankets and attached to medical equipment. Yuna climbed aboard. The door closed behind her. The ship rose into the sky and disappeared into the stars. Behind her, the galaxy burned with questions. But Yuna did not look back. She had her brother. She had the truth. And now the universe knew exactly what humanity could do. 1 month had passed since the night Yuna killed Lord Vren on live broadcast. 1 month since the galaxy learned that the Galactic Council had lied to them. 1 month since everything changed. Yuna stood at the window of the rebel base watching the stars. The base was hidden inside an asteroid field, far from any council patrol routes. Hana had built it over 10 years, piece by piece, ship by ship. Now it was home to 300 human survivors and the beginning of something new. Behind her, Taewoo slept in a medical bed. He was getting stronger every day. The doctor said he would walk again within a week. The scars on his body would fade with time, though the scars on his mind might take longer. The door opened. Hana entered, her boots heavy on the metal floor. She was tall for a human woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. "The council has called an emergency session," Hana said. "Half of them want to apologize to humanity and offer us citizenship. The other half want to send every warship they have to find us and burn us out of existence." Yuna did not turn from the window. "Which half is winning?" "The war faction. 3 species have already pledged their fleets. They are calling you a monster, a demon. They say if one human girl can do what you did, then humanity is too dangerous to let live." "They are not wrong." Hana walked to stand beside her. "Elder Pale contacted us. He represents the peace faction. He wants to meet with you. He says there is still a chance to avoid war." "And what do you think?" Hana was quiet for a long moment. "I think war is already here. It started 12 years ago when they watched our planet burn and did nothing. It continued when they put us in chains and called us animals. Vren was not the only one who hated us. He was just the one who got caught." Yuna finally turned to face her. "You want me to fight. I want you to lead. The galaxy saw what you can do. Humans across 1,000 worlds watched you tear through their best soldiers like they were nothing. For the first time in 12 years, they have hope. They believe we can win. Can we?" Hana smiled, but there was no joy in it. "I do not know, but I know we cannot keep running. We cannot keep hiding. Eventually they will find us. And when they do, they will not offer trials or executions. They will simply erase us. Every man, woman, and child, every trace of humanity wiped from the universe." Yuna looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, council fleets were gathering. Somewhere out there, aliens were sharpening their weapons and dreaming of human blood. The peace that Elder Pale offered was an illusion. She knew that now. The galaxy did not want peace with humanity. It wanted submission. It wanted extinction. But she was tired, so tired. "I need to think," she said. Hana nodded and left without another word. Yuna walked through the base until she reached Tae-Woo's room. He was awake now, sitting up in bed with a tablet in his hands. He looked better than he had a month ago, but his eyes still carried shadows that would never fully disappear. "And you are going to meet with Pyle," he said. It was not a question. Yuna sat on the edge of his bed. "How did you know?" "Because you are still you. Underneath everything they did to us, you still believe in people. You still want to find the good in them. Is that wrong?" Tae-Woo set down the tablet. He reached out and took her hand. His grip was weak but warm. "It is not wrong. It is the most human thing about you. But Yuna, I need you to understand something. For 3 years I sat in that cell and watched them laugh at my pain. I listened to Vren tell me about his plans for our species. The peace faction is small. The war faction is powerful. Even if Pyle means well, he cannot protect us. Then what should I do? Whatever you decide, I will support you. But promise me one thing." "What?" "Do not become what they made you. You are not just a weapon. You are my sister. You are Yuna. Never forget that." Yuna squeezed his hand. She did not trust herself to speak. That night, she took a small shuttle and flew alone to a distant moon. It was a dead world, gray and cold, with no atmosphere and no life. But it had one thing that mattered: a memorial. 31 small graves stood in neat rows beneath the silent stars. Children who had not survived Project Rebirth, her brothers and sisters in suffering. She had never met most of them, but she carried their names in her heart. Yuna knelt before the graves and placed a small white flower on the nearest stone. It was fake, made of plastic and wire. Real flowers could not survive here, but it was the best she could do. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I survived and you did not. I do not know why. But maybe there is no reason. Maybe the universe is just cruel." She stayed there for a long time, kneeling in the dust. When she finally stood, she saw lights in the sky above. A council warship dropping out of hyperspace, soldiers deploying in landing pods. They had found her. Yuna did not run. She did not hide. She walked toward the edge of the memorial and watched the soldiers land. 20 of them, 30, 50. They surrounded her with weapons raised, shouting commands in a language she did not bother to understand. She thought about Taewoo's words. She thought about Hana's arguments. She thought about Elder Pale and his promises of peace. Then she thought about the children buried behind her, about Earth burning, about 12 years of chains and hatred and blood. Yuna smiled. The soldiers hesitated, and something in her expression made them afraid. They had come expecting a cornered animal. They found something else entirely. She started walking toward them, slowly, calmly, her hands empty at her sides. "They called humanity a dying species," she said, loud enough for all of them to hear. "They were wrong. We were just waking up." The first soldier fired. Yuna was already moving. The galaxy wanted a monster. She would give them something worse. She would give them a survivor.